Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Endless Urgency, our first episode live in person with Congressman Maxwell Frost. We just finished the interview. We talked about ICE terrorizing the city of Chicago. We talked about the government shutdown. We talked about the future of the Democratic Party and a whole bunch of other issues. I want to thank every single one of you who is helping to support this, our paid subscribers, helping us to build our new content studio, helping us to hire great folks and pay them a living wage. You're the reason these things happen. Here's the episode with Congressman Maxwell Frost. Thank you. Congressman, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah. I want to start this, and I've been starting a lot of my interviews just this way because it's been a really difficult month. I think probably the most difficult month since Trump's taken office. How are you holding up right now?
The last, I would say, 3 weeks have been very, very difficult. One thing after another, thinking about what's going on with ICE, the occupation of our cities, thinking about what's going on in terms of gun violence in this country, thinking about political violence on the rise in this country, racism in broad daylight, and really white supremacy coming really back to the mainstream of politics in this country, which we've really fought against and our ancestors have fought against for so long. And so everything's definitely compiling. And you're right. I think the last month has been the most difficult. And not even just because he's doing anything that's worse than he's done before. I mean, everything's been bad this whole time. Yeah. But it's the kind of the perfect storm of things happening at the same time, which I think is really showing the country what happens when you elect an authoritarian, what happens when you elect a fascist into office, and what he will do to abuse the power, to test the power, to step outside the bounds of the power, and limit the public's ability to be able to call that into question, but also do something about it. And I think people are seeing this in many different lights across the entire country, in front of them, on their cell phones, on the news, every day. In the last 4 weeks have been, I think it's come at a very high velocity the last 4 weeks. I think at the beginning of the year, there were a lot of people who, saw him signing, executive orders and seeing people freak out about it who care about politics. But I think for one of the first times over the last couple months, people who don't care about politics are now coming into the conversation, which is very powerful. Yeah, and it does feel like that. I want to start by just talking about what's going on in Chicago right now. Yeah. I want to tell you about the day that I've had, because I think it's a good way to start this conversation, because about 4 hours ago, I got a text message that my son's school was on lockdown and that ICE agents were outside, and rushed off there. By the time I got there, they were gone. But then I'm on the school council of another school down the street that my son doesn't go to, and that school was also on lockdown. I pulled up just as the kids were going in. They actually, as I was pulling up, they thought I was an ICE agent. And the school I'm on the council of is 40% Latino. And this city, and I might get a little bit emotional talking about it, I've had quite the day. This city is like a powder keg right now. And I'm struggling with the fear that I saw in the eyes of the kids who thought I was an ICE agent just pulling up. Yeah. And thank God the administrator who was outside was like, no, he's with us. Yeah. And you're seeing the worst of what this country has to offer in the way that we are treating kids and families and working people and folks who are, in my opinion, as American as you or I are, even if they're missing the documentation. And it's not right. And you're also seeing the best, because it wasn't very long. I was alone for a while outside the school. I stayed there for about 3 hours before I came here to shoot this. And about 20 other parents showed up and stayed the entire time. And we talked and we hung out and we organized about ways we can protect these kids. And you're seeing the worst, but you're also seeing the best. And I'm incredibly proud of this city. And I just want to hear from you, what are the things that we can be doing to stop this from happening or protect our kids, like protect the people that we love? It's a lot. I mean, part of it is exactly what you just brought up. And you're right. The worst of times, honestly, a lot of time bring out the best in people, the best in humanity, the best in our communities. There's the legal process that we have to use that as a tool to push back against this authoritarian government, which I think just yesterday we got some good news on in terms of the National Guard here in Illinois and across the country, which is really important. But at the same time, it is important for communities at home to really step up and organize together to protect our most vulnerable people and people that are being targeted. This is part of the reason I tell folks that Know Your Rights trainings are not just for undocumented people. They're for everybody. Host one for you and your neighbors, because it's important that you know that if you see something that's going on, you can either tell someone their rights or you understand what's not allowed and what is allowed. And it gives you the power, because knowledge is power, the power you need as an advocate, as an organizer, and as a human, that lives in your community to stand up for children, to stand up for families, to stand up for people that are being abused by the state. And that's what you guys did at that school. In fact, we were talking about this earlier. I was supposed to come in a lot earlier and meet with Representative Delia Ramirez. We were going to go to a local school to help walk parents in to go pick up their kids. It's a school that ICE agents have been waiting outside of. My earlier flight got canceled, and so I wasn't able to make it. But she's out there doing that right now. And to see an elected official, I'm a big Delia Ramirez fan because she understands what it means to be an organizer and to do work that's effective right now. And it's all important. Direct action, protests, mutual aid, standing up for your community, sometimes putting your body on the line, right? To stand out there and make sure people are comfortable and say, I'm part of this community, we're here to protect you. But it's also important to figure out where can I best be used. And, I had hit her up before I came up here and said, hey, I'm coming to Chicago. It's important for me to throw down with you guys in any way that's helpful. I don't want to just come into your city and leave. I want to come in and help, but whatever's helpful. And I asked her, because initially I thought, well, maybe we should go to the Broadview Center or something like that, because I've seen a lot of that online. But so that she had mentioned to me, and that a lot of organizers are asking people to do too, is, well, what other work can we do to make sure people don't end up there in the first place? And that's why when she offered, let's go to the school together. And so I would tell people organize. There are rapid response groups all around Chicago right now that are figuring out how can we get together and go and protect people. Join one of those groups. Figure out ways that you can support those groups. It might be financially. It might be with food. It might be looking on the internet and giving information. I mean, there's something we can all contribute in this moment, but that real community organizing is important because authoritarians thrive when the opposition doesn't organize together.
Right.
And we can't let them have that. That's why they're doing all this, by the way, too. It's, of course, to, I believe, in part, ethnically cleanse this country. And, the first time when I said this, I had some people reach out to me and say, Max, that's a heavy word to use. And I said, yeah, it is. I mean, it is heavy, but it is what's going on. I mean, when in Florida, we have Alligator Alcatraz. I call it the Everglades internment camp. My first time in there, I'm looking around and I didn't see any people from European countries who overstayed their visas or anything. I saw all black and brown people exclusively. And that's all I've seen being taken up in this for the most part. And this is part of what happens when that white supremacy and white nationalism comes into the mainstream of our nation and then is given the keys to our government. Yeah. And people are being victimized and people are being abused and people are being exiled from this country essentially because of who they are and what they look like. And so that's my long way of saying organize locally and figure out ways you can come together, demand more from elected officials. For me, I think this is a moment where something I always say is when you don't have all the power you want, you use all the power you got. If you're used to 10 tools and now you have 3, you might have to just stare at those 3 for a long time. And then you get creative. And then you start thinking about ways that you can use your limited resources and your limited power in this moment to actually do something. And it's going to be outside of the norm. It's not going to be something that's normal. But that's what we need in this moment. And, that's how we effectively worked with people litigating on Alligator Alcatraz and got that initial decision to have it shut down. It's going to go back and forth in court. There's people in it again, but we'll be going back in those buildings and conducting oversight. Or maybe it's like what Delia's been doing and walking, parents in and using your privilege as a member of Congress to be able to help people immediately in your community.
Yeah. Or I was out there talking with the parents who came out to join us today, and I was talking about, I'm going to use my white privilege. I'm on this side of the fence. One of the most just the strangest parts of the day was we had parents who were coming up, and again, we probably had 30 parents who came up, and half of them were white and half of them weren't. Yeah. I made the half that weren't white. Because I was just in charge of the fence. I was like, you have to be on this side of the fence. Mm-hmm. You have to be on Chicago public grounds right now, because if somebody pulls up, I don't want you getting pulled. Yeah. And yesterday or the day before, there was a video that went around of a woman who was in the school pickup line for her kid, and ICE agents swarmed her and pulled her out, and she was a legal resident. So they're not being strategic and targeted in doing this. No. They're just going after anybody because they're brown or they have a last name and sense Latino. And it isn't right. And I want to zero in on something that you said in there, which is they want to overwhelm us. Yep. They want us to give into apathy. They want us to feel like we can't do anything. And on our show, we talk about 1 million acts of resistance, which is, I think people keep looking for a person or an idea that's going to get us out of this moment. And the truth is it's not. It's going to be 1 million things that happen, things you don't see, things you hear about, things that you forget. Yeah. things that don't get the credit that you deserve. And we need a lot more of that, because if people give in, that's how he wins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's when people allow the conversation and the resistance to only exist in the most comfortable domain of the oppressor, right? And what I mean by that, that's my fancy way of saying, Trump wants us to believe that the only way we can fight him that's effective, and the only way we can be the opposition, is just in Washington, D.C. And if it doesn't exist there, it doesn't exist anywhere. And why does he want that? It's comfortable for him. He's the president of the United States. He has the biggest megaphone in Washington, D.C. But when we leave and we're here in our communities, that completely dissolves and evaporates. And it's part of the reason we've seen even people who voted for him coming out now and expressing disapproval, because they are seeing local impacts in their community, whether they're an immigrant or a Latino person who might have voted for Trump, and they are seeing what's happening to their own people. Whether you're a veteran and now you're seeing, oh, my local VA, I have a small clinic, used to have 10 people, now it has 4. Like, it's hard for him to lie about stuff people see in front of them, but it's easy for him to lie about stuff when it's just some abstract conversation that stays in Washington, D.C. Now, I'm not saying, this isn't to absolve politicians and say, there's nothing we can do in D.C. There's a lot of things we can do in D.C. that are important. But what I'm trying to get at is he wants us to believe that there's one person we're waiting for to lead the resistance. And until that person comes, there is no resistance. And if you believe that, you are letting him win, because there isn't one person that's going to come along and do this whole thing. And this is part of the issue with the celebrity culture we have in this nation. We're always itching for the one person. It doesn't mean there won't be people that inspire us in this moment, but it's not about one person. It's about all of us, right? It's about all the work that we do. I love that Million Acts of Resistance. That's what it's all about. And I really encourage people to think of the civil rights movement, right? You think of someone like Martin Luther King or Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer. These are folks who they were thinking of direct action and resistance that they could do that was local in scope, but very national in impact. This is part of what's going on here in Chicago and across the country. People are coming together to resist and to protect their community, doing things that are literally about one person at a time, right? Doing things that might be about one family at a time. But then the footage from those things, the stories from that, have the ability and have the potential to have a national impact and inspire people in their own community to do the same thing. And so I encourage people to really think about that. They want us to think we're powerless, and they want us to think that you have to wait for some nameless politician to do a specific thing. And if they don't do that specific thing, all hope is lost. Doesn't mean you shouldn't hold politicians accountable to do the things we want them to do. But it just means don't let that demoralize you and make you think that we have zero power. Because of the way that authoritarians, and especially fascists, really get the power they want is the opposition gives it to them. It's usually not even in the laws that they pass. I mean, I think about diversity, equity, and inclusion. There hasn't been a single law passed by the United States Congress that has anything to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion this year.
Right.
But you might think, well, all these companies are doing this and that. Yeah, they're obeying in advance. He's using the fear of something he might do, or maybe he could do, or perhaps maybe he doesn't have the authority to do, but he'll do it anyway. And using that to essentially BS people into them saying, I need to do what he's saying. I need to obey in advance. And that's the case in a lot of this stuff. He'll come to the mic and say, I'm going to do this. And everyone goes, well, God, he can't do that. And people are essentially giving him the power to do it. And people have to remember that he's a liar, and that don't take him at his word with everything he says. And know that you have the power to really fight against this at home and in your community. Yeah,
he is the definition of if you give a mouse a cookie. Yeah. And everybody who has acquiesced to him has watched him come back, right? ABS acquiesced to him in the beginning, gave him a bunch of cash, then it still goes after Jimmy Kimmel, right? So it's just on and on and on. The way you beat a bully is you punch him in the mouth. And a lot of Democrats don't seem to understand that, and maybe that's a good pivot. But before we get to that first, I want to just add something that rings in my head here, which is right after the election, Pete Buttigieg said something along the lines of, the work is going to get done. Why don't you do it? Because then you'll know it's done right, at least the way you want it done.
That's why I ran for office.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that rings in my head because you also mentioned like the safety of Donald Trump's power in Washington, right? I also think about the safety that I have as a content creator. And I wrote about this last week on Friday, a week ago, this last Friday. It's safe for me to be in a podcast booth with you having a conversation. It's safe for me to be in my basement shooting a Substack or writing a rant. It isn't safe for me to put my body on the line. And so I'm doing a lot of reflection for myself of today's the first day I've been able to put my body on the line and be out there. Now, nothing happened, which is good, thank God. But we need more people that are willing to do that and step up. So I want to transition a little bit. I want to talk about the shutdown now, because the shutdown's been going on for about a week and a half at this point that we're shooting this. And I want to start just by talking about the Democratic Party, because I would give the Democratic Party like a B-, B+ and how they've handled the shutdown. I would argue that Democrats are winning the shutdown right now. 100%. But before we really get into the shutdown politics of it, you know, you sort of alluded to this, which is that a lot of people have not been willing to fight Donald Trump, certainly as forcefully. And there's a conversation about, you know, we need a new generation of Democratic Party leaders. We need to sort of step things up. And you are one of the youngest members of Congress. I don't think you're still the youngest member.
I'm still the youngest,
You're still the youngest even now? Yasmin is not younger than you?
No, I'm still the youngest. I'm 28.
I'm shocked by that.
But the hope...
28?
Yeah, I'm 28. But the hope is that...
I think I'm offended by that.
Hopefully I'm not the youngest still next term, if I have the honor of getting reelected by my constituents, because... contrary to popular belief, I am getting older. So if I remain the youngest for like 3 or 4 terms, that's an issue.
Yeah. I mean, more distinguished, we'll call it. Yeah. I mean, I don't see a single gray hair on you. Like, I'm approaching 40 and I'm getting more gray.
Hey, I'm getting some in my beard.
Yeah. Is it the kind of thing where it's more apparent the longer it gets? Because that's my issue right now.
Oh, yeah.
So now I'm keeping it shorter on purpose because of it. But, you know, so you're in the mix with this. And like on the shutdown messaging, like last week, Hakeem Jeffries kept everybody in Washington. They shot that sort of like selfie of everybody who was there. Were you in that shot? I don't know if you were there or not.
I had left right before that because I had to go to something else, but I was in there when people were talking about it.
And so they've done that like 2 or 3 times now. And my criticism of this is not, I like Hakeem. I don't really have a problem with Hakeem in the way that a lot of other people do, but like why do that once? Fine, I get it. Do it once, but they did it like 3 or 4 times. And like, I want every member of Congress out doing shows like this. I want them on YouTube. I want them on their own social media. I want them on local TV. And the problem is about half the caucus can't do that. And how do we get the caucus to understand that we're behind partially because we don't have the talent that we need to be able to do this?
A few things. The first one is, and this is part of the reason I ran for what's called the DPCC, the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee. The whole reason I ran for that is to help members get a better hold of this new media world that we live in. And the fact that there's a lot of people in Congress and a lot of people in politics in general who still see the frontier of political communication as TV, which it was once upon a time, right? And if you own that frontier, you own politics. And who was the last president to do that is Obama in that era.
Yes.
We're in a different era. And who's the current person who dominates that? Donald Trump. And we see his return to politics be successful, right? And I think that's something we need to really get on in terms of independent media, podcasts, the content we put out, the way that we can get that content out to our constituents and also a national audience, the way that we go into more cultural and pop culture places as well, and a way that we do it authentically. You know, I think part of the problem is, and this isn't anything, is you see a successful example of something and your urge is to do exactly what that person did, which a lot of times is the wrong lesson. It's less about doing the exact same thing that person did because it'll come off as inauthentic if it's not your thing, but more of what they're trying to accomplish, you know? And this is something I always tell to people, and the caucus is like such a diverse group of people from all across the country with different interests. And I always explain to people, go for the things that you are a nerd and obsessed with. I promise you there's a whole world out there of people who are just as obsessed about it as you are and would probably love to hear you talk about it, nerd out about it. And then you can sneak in what you believe on other political things too. I mean, I do it all the time. I went on a Yu-Gi-Oh channel. I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh. My mom didn't let me watch Yu-Gi-Oh. I grew up in a very Christian household.
Did they think it was demonic?
It was demonic. So
I grew up in a similar household with some things like that. Yeah.
Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh were demonic, but in 2020 I got into it. So I'm a little bit of a late bloomer, like the card game.
Yeah.
And I had a guy named MBT reach out to me to be on his Yu-Gi-Oh channel, and I dueled him. And then we did an interview and talked about politics. And to this day, this is like in 2022, to this day, people will stop me and be like, yo, MBT, like, yo, you went, he like killed you in that game, but I follow you now. And the reason, and I'm not saying like we're going to solve all of our problems by playing Yu-Gi-Oh. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that was very authentic to me as a person. and I try to do that. Even like I go on a lot of sports things and I always joke around. I don't know a ton about sports, right? And that always gives them an avenue to educate me on stuff. And it's always funny, like, and it makes it more authentic.
Yeah.
And so there are people in our caucus who are really good at gardening, right? Or different things like that. Go and find that world and get involved in it. And if we all do that, we're all going to be in different places. Not everyone's going to be the most famous person in the caucus, right?
Right.
That's just not what's going to happen. But that's the issue between trying to chase being viral and trying to chase being consistent.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, if you choose consistency over trying to find the viral moment, you're going to put out content that's both authentic to you, educational, informative to the people watching it, and you probably will hit some big moments anyway, but not necessarily looking for the big moments. And I see that with a lot of politicians all the time. You can tell they made a video following a trend to make a viral video, which is fine. But part of the issue that a lot of people don't understand is when you're building, and I say this, and let me take a step back. I don't count myself as an expert of social media. And I was just with my friend Nabila, who's a state representative here in Illinois, who I'm a huge fan of. And we were talking about the fact that we don't feel like we're big social media gurus, but people think we are because we're really young.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, I just this year have kind of cracked a code of the way people want to hear from me and what's most effective. And so like on TikTok, I went from like 50,000 followers at the beginning of this year to 500,000, really just from a few videos of me now finding my authentic way of talking to people. But when I first got elected, I was looking back and, it was the national news around really the entire world. And I didn't think I did a good enough job of garnering that to like keep a social media following. My first post wasn't until like almost 2 months after I got elected. And I think it's because I come from like a on the ground grassroots space and I'm still learning. So I'm not here saying I'm the guru of social media, but what I've learned is the content you put out that does go viral will dictate why people are following you. So if you're a politician and you put out like a thing that's just like a funny trend with no substance in it, which is, I'm not trying to like dog on people who do that, but if you do that, the people who follow you from that are following you for that reason. And you can see this all the time with creators who do a specific type of content, but when they post something outside of that realm, it does very poorly, right? Yeah. And like people don't really watch it or pay attention to it. And I think that's something we should keep in mind. I did a funny video recently about the Coldplay.
The CEO.
Yeah, the CEO thing, which I'm not like I always feel bad. I mean, I always feel bad when people get put on blast on the internet, just in general, no matter who they are, because I just feel bad about that. But I gave my take on it, and for like 10 or 15 seconds in a video, and then I said, now that I got your attention, I talked about Alligator Alcatraz, and people loved that video, right? And in the comments, people were saying, man, I was about to unfollow you because I thought you were doing some cringe stuff, but you got my attention. And so now I feel like that's something I've been doing, is doing like 5 seconds of a trend and then talking about something else.
Yeah.
But that's like authentic to me, and we stumbled into it. So that's my very long way of saying we just want people to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. But the stuff they're throwing at the wall, we want it to be authentic to who they are, and not try to like. We see a lot of people, when someone who like posts like something online, you can tell like, dude, that was your 20-year-old comm staffer,
right?
Like who is this for, kind of thing. And that's not bad all the time. Like it's funny sometimes, but I don't know. I just think people crave like authenticity from their politicians. So just be you. And I think a really good example of that's Bernie Sanders, right? Someone who a lot of young people look up to and love, who doesn't have comm staffer writing memes online for him. He's just being him. And I don't think we give people enough credit sometimes.
Yeah, well, take it from me, from somebody who wrote Bernie Sanders' emails in 2016, along with a lot of really smart people. Like they were long form, and they were almost always things that Bernie had already said before. Like
exactly.
We had like strict rules on that. You said like we're not going to solve all the world's problems by playing Yu-Gi-Oh, but I think we're going to solve it with the spirit of that, which is being more real, being more authentic, and going into spaces and having difficult conversations with people. Period. And like your social media should not be the same as like, I think one of the sneaky best social media programs out there is Adam Schiff's YouTube page. Adam Schiff has like 800,000.
He's a great YouTuber.
He's doing really good. And if you told me 10 years ago when I started working for Adam that he would be one of the best political YouTubers, I would be like, okay, man, sure.
And a big part of it too is him. He's like posting content of him on the floor, of him doing this, of him doing that, and writing the right captions. And I think he's kind of taken, a lot of people take our videos, post them online, and put like Democrat destroys this person, and then they'll get like 1 million views off of it. And it's like, why don't we just do that ourselves? Like, it's us. We should post our own stuff and like retain, viewers and followers from that to give our message out. So
and not be giving that engagement and like the creator rewards to somebody else, but building that audience yourself is like, you can't rely. Those creators turn on a dime. You know, a lot of them do, and it's hard, but it shouldn't be the same. And like AOC should not be the same as Maxwell Frost, and Bernie shouldn't be the same. Like to get back to the shutdown for a second, the video of Bernie and AOC walking down the street. If that was scripted, I would be shocked to learn that was scripted. It looked to me like they just turned the camera on and talked.
They probably actually did just run into each other on the street. They definitely just were walking around.
Right. I believe it. And the fact that even if it's, I talk about this concept with my clients all the time, it's authenticity versus perceived authenticity. Donald Trump is not authentic to anything. He doesn't care about anyone else but himself. But his perceived authenticity is through the roof. Because so many people believe that's the Donald Trump that they're getting, that they believe is being real. So look, I've been around Bernie Sanders. I believe that he is being real in every moment. You've been around him probably more than I have. But it's that moment between him and AOC, the fact that I immediately believed it and bought it, that charisma, that relationship that they have is earned. And you have to exude that, and we need more of that.
And there was joy in the video, too.
There was, And I think not being like, we're Democrats are, negative Nancy's, however you want to say that. Maybe that phrase is offensive and I'll probably get canceled. I don't know. Negative Nellies, right? Mike Nellis.
Woke is dead now.
Yeah,
so,
woke is dead. Yeah. Long live woke. But it's getting to that point where you believe, like, I'm getting the real you. And I'm doing something that's authentic to myself. It's also, I just think it's more fun in that way too. Like, I know so many members of Congress who are so much more interesting when I talk to them one-on-one than I see them when they're on TV or I see them when they're doing social media, and it drives me crazy. Like, I worked for Kamala for a long time. I think the Kamala Harris that I saw behind the scenes, way smarter, way more interesting than what was portrayed in the campaign.
I agree. And I think that this is something, something I told members like a few months ago was, when you're doing a direct to camera, do the one with your script that your staff wrote for you, and then do one right after where there's no script and you just say it. And if you mess up, just do it again. And then if you mess up a second time, do it one more time. And look at those two side by side, and you choose which one you want to put out there. And I've asked people to do that instead of just saying don't do the script, because sometimes people need a script, I understand, but I want them to see what I'm talking about. The fact that when you post that video of you obviously looking at something that's not the camera, and obviously it looks like you're reading something, it never really performs the way you want it to perform. And there's a reason behind that. Now, I'm not saying if you do it my way, it's going to go viral immediately, but it's the consistency that really matters, because you never know what's going to pop off. I mean, for me, a lot of the stuff that's popped off have been random moments that we did not plan at all. And that alone should show us. When a lot of people don't know, I used to work in music before politics, and I'm a drummer. I went to an art school. And
I didn't know that.
Awesome. My dad's a musician. And so one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life was manage an artist. I managed a hip-hop artist in Orlando. Being with an artist and trying to make it is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, including running for Congress. I mean, it is hard. But we spent a long time trying to figure out ways that we could essentially use our online platforms that get them to pop off. And the thing you learn a lot I took like 1 million artist marketing classes. And the thing that you learn a ton of was the videos that did the best in social media are not the like highly produced ones that you think you need to make, the, what is it called? Vivo, like music video kind of stuff. But the videos that perform the best are the ones that seem like it is part of a natural feed when people are scrolling through of their friends or this and that. And I think I see the same thing in politics too. But again, it's different for everybody. I mean, you take someone like Zohran Mamdani, right? And the videos he's been able to produce and stuff, and a lot of people attribute his success just to the videos. It's not just the videos, it's also what he's saying in the videos, and that people like what he's saying, and that's a big part that no one should forget about. But that's really authentic to him. And then you look at someone like AOC, and what she does is she does a lot of very long-form lives that then a lot of people will go in and clip little clips from that live, and those clips will also go viral, and that's her thing. Everyone has a different thing, and I think just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks and do it. We are content creators now, whether we like it or not. Politicians are content creators. And I'm not saying we're influencers, that's not what I'm trying to say, but you are someone who needs to bring out content. And the fact of the matter is, this era of someone lying and then you going on MSNBC or CNN to set the record straight is done. That era is done. The new era is something more like your WWE entrance song versus my WWE entrance song. May the best entrance win. And we have the benefit of ours being the truth, but unfortunately the lines are very blurred now. And it sucks. I've said this to so many people in the caucus who have said, I can't believe that. That's horrible. And, I've been like, I know it sucks, but it also is what it is.
Right.
So now work on your entrance song.
Right.
And work on the message that you want to get out there and the way you want to get it out there, because that is the world that we currently live in.
Yeah. Now I have to ask, what is your WWE entrance song?
I would say... during my whole campaign, it was All Right by Kendrick Lamar.
Oh.
Yeah, one of my favorite videos is my friend sitting at home the night I won my campaign. And he sends me this video of him and his family laughing because the local news is going live. And I come on stage and All Right is playing. Awesome. And the stage is full of young people. And we're like moshing on stage, like live on West 2 News. And we're just like having a good time and moshing. And they literally go, and here he is dancing across the stage. So probably All Right by Kendrick Lamar.
That's kind of what happens when you get elected at 24.
Yeah. We had a party. In fact, right before I got a call, we win, I go backstage with my best friends and we immediately do 2 shots. And right after we take to talk about shots on this podcast? Okay.
Fireball, I assume, because you're in your
No,
20s.
not Fireball, dude, no. My stomach can't do that.
Just wait till you get older.
Yeah, well, like most of Gen Z, I have stomach issues. So whatever else it was, I did 2 shots and then my phone rings and I look 202 area code. I answer it. They go, please hold for the president. I had just knocked back 2 shots and I put it on speaker and I'm like, yo, guys, shut up. And all my friends are crowded around and they're all geeking out.
That's awesome.
But either way, yeah, that was a night I'll always remember. But what was the question? Oh yeah, so All Right by Kendrick Lamar.
All right,
yeah.
Okay. I think mine would be, and I'll just go into business for myself for a second. I think Holiday by Green Day. I don't know. I would find a way to make this work, but the reason I brought it up was last year I got into a very public feud with Laura Loomer. This year I also got into a very public feud with Laura Loomer for folks who've been following it. But I got a subpoena from the House Judiciary Committee, and that night I did many shots and went to Wrigley to see Green Day, and my wife said she's never seen me more cathartically dancing and singing like an idiot than to Holiday on the day that fascists had come after me like that. So that I think would be mine. That's
did you have fun at the show?
I did. It's such a good show.
I saw them for the first time this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you like it? Where?
Oh, I loved it. It was at Coachella. They were headlining.
At Coachella.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
wow.
I used to work there for the
at
festival.
Coachella.
Yeah, for 5
that's
years.
Awesome.
When I was working on campaigns, I would always take 2 months off. Usually, the campaign would end in November, and then, anyone who worked on campaigns, that you're usually unemployed for a period of time before you get on the next one. And it always
jump immediately to a call center.
Yeah, or whatever you can do. I did so many random jobs, but my thing is, I started leaving the campaign right when it would end, and then I would go and live in Indio, California, for 2 months because the logistics director there, named Ken Deans, actually used to do advance for Bill Clinton in the White House, and then now he's the logistics director for Coachella and Stagecoach. And we met each other through a project I was working on when I was 18 or 19, and I get a call from him after a race that we had just won. He goes, "Hey, my credentialing manager dropped out. Can you come out here in a week and be out here for 2 months to work on Coachella?" And I was like, yeah. And then 5 years later, I was still working there. And so I have a family there, and it's a great festival, great people who run it, and very progressive, liberal people. And so when I got elected, they started inviting me to go out to go speak at a speaker stage they have out there. So I haven't gone every year I've been in Congress, but every other year I go and we'll speak about climate. It's a stage focused on climate and, what we need to do around the climate crisis.
That's an amazing story. That's really cool.
I think I'm the first Coachella worker to be elected to Congress.
Wow. I'm just thinking about all the odd jobs I used to do before I got established enough to keep having work in the middle. And I used to I was a call center guy who would call for AT&T and help people when their phones would break. So
phone banking,
women.
okay.
Yeah, so I was doing phone banking.
It's always stuff that's a little similar.
Yeah.
I became a car dealer, but internet sales where you're in the back calling people.
That's awesome.
That's something I did between a campaign. But I actually walked out. I quit because they brought us into a room one day and they were like, "We have a new program we want to educate you guys on. It's called Credit Amnesty. Here's a list of people with insanely bad credit who have come in the last 5 years. And we want you to call them and say, there's a new program where we can get you in the car. And this program is great for you guys because you're going to make great commission because we can get them in a very expensive car that they can't really afford at a crazy high interest rate, but they're probably going to do it." And as soon as they told us about this program, I literally got up and I went home. I think it was 18 or 19. It was right after campaign. And I went home and my dad was like, "You're home early." And I was like, "Yeah, they tried to get us to do some bullshit. Like I was like, I can't do that. So, and right after I started working another campaign.
There's a new startup. I don't know if you've seen this. We're going to go into business in an entirely different direction. But there's like a new startup where you can take out a loan to pay for your groceries on your car. And it's like this brilliant new startup where
the collateral,
this collateral car startup that is like about to be like a big thing because people have maxed out their credit and then they've turned to Klarna because Klarna is a pyramid scheme. You'll never convince me otherwise. And I believe you can just look at the Klarna numbers and go, oh, the economy's in deep trouble. But now they're doing this, so it's like, oh, take the only asset that you have, which is your car, because like most people can't afford a house now. So now they're borrowing against their car to be able to buy groceries.
Yeah, because they want us to get used to our biggest asset as working people being your freaking car, which most people don't own anyway.
Right. And depreciate immediately.
Depreciate immediately, which is horrible. 10%. And now people are, using Klarna and like Affirm for like their Uber Eats, for their freaking Chipotle burrito. I mean, it's horrible. We need to do a lot more regulating of these companies that have popped up, like Klarna and Affirm, where people are using it to pay for their groceries and stuff like that. I mean, it's horrible. And in fact, I recently, or about a year ago, I used Affirm on something, like a couch. And afterwards, they like give you an account or something. So I went on, and they have something called your money card or something like that. It's essentially like a credit card. They give you a limit. And what you do is you go in and you type the amount of money you want to use. So let's say you're buying something for $528, but you're unsure what the tax is, right? And so you'll go in and you'll put in $550. And what they say is whatever you don't use, you don't use. But what happens, and they don't tell you this, is if you put in anything above what you actually need, you're still going to pay the interest on that, but they're going to credit you back that amount. But the interest you're paying is still connected to the bigger amount you had before. Yeah. So it's like all these little things where it seems like it's not a big deal for a person, because a lot of these things are interest free, but at the end of the day, you miss a payment and you're screwed.
Right. And it's such a perfect example of how the economy is just like totally broken because the bottom 80, 90% are stuck with things like that where they don't have credit and the things that are designed to sort of ruin their credit. And if you look, by the way, credit scores are falling at the fastest rate since the Great Recession. But if you're in that top 10%, there's an unbelievable number of things that you can get that are super helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Like I've been a successful entrepreneur when I bought my last car, like a Volkswagen Atlas. I have like a family. So like we were getting that. They offered me a 0% interest loan just to get the car off the lot. And I was like 0%. They were like, yeah, you just pay us like every month. There's no problem. Just make your payments. And I was like, oh, okay. I think I got in the car and I was like, is this white privilege? I don't know what this is. Like I was so confused by the deal.
Well, a lot of people don't realize you get to a level of wealth where, and I'm talking about like more billionaires, and you get to a level of wealth where you're not even living on like cash flow or like actual liquid cash, but you're living off of like borrowed cash that essentially is being given to you at like a 0% interest rate.
Well, that's what Elon Musk does.
Yeah, that's what Elon does. Yeah,
that's how he bought Twitter. He just put his Tesla shares up to buy Twitter.
Yeah, when you're that rich, no one's going to deny you a loan of however much you want.
Right.
And this is how they get around a million things. Yeah, I mean, our economy is the biggest it's been. We have a huge economy. We have so much resources, and so people have nothing. And this is part of what Bernie's talked about for so long is the wealth inequality in this country. And I think we're at a point where we're at a breaking point where people who thought themselves to be middle class are now waiting in bread lines and waiting at the food distribution. And then they're like, yo, I did everything they told me to do. Like I have, like mom and dad, we both have a job, we have a car, we have a mortgage on our house, and we can't pay for our groceries anymore. And this is part of my, like, not a theory, but I'm worried we're in a place right now where it's so bad economically for the average working person that we could be in a situation where we just have one-term presidents for a long time unless somebody aggressively tackles it to the point where it's like Project 2025 style, but actually like for the working class, like move in and make some pretty drastic changes that people feel immediately. And I talk a lot with the Roosevelt Center does good work on this, and I think Democracy Forward or Democracy Docket just started a project on this, on like how can Congress think when we're writing the big pieces of legislation, even the way we write it, the timelines we set, how do we hold agencies accountable to make sure things actually, people feel it very soon? And I think the New Deal has a really good example of this. FDR almost obsessing over, some things people aren't going to feel for years, but how do we make sure that there's things people feel in 4 months and people see in 4 months? Yeah. And we've really lost sight of that in this new age of modern politics. It's very acceptable for a piece of legislation to really not come into fruition for a decade. It hasn't always been this way, and a lot lot of people don't realize that. And I think we're at a point where unless we have a president who comes in moving very quickly to change the way our economy works and unrig it for people, we might have a place where people are just so frustrated with whoever's in office that it's just like bouncing between the parties for a long time.
Yeah. Well, and you get this sort of like, there's a lot of feedback and chatter you hear from like Democrats online where they'll be like, well, these people who voted for Trump, they're all racist. These people who voted for Trump, they're all sexist. They're bad people. And I don't believe that that's right because if you look at voter profiles, the number of people who went Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump is an
I talk about this all the time.
Okay, good. Because I want to hear what you have to say about this. But it's just an unbelievable number of people. And you know what that says to me? They're crying out for
change.
help. They got screwed in the 2008 financial crisis, which nobody went to prison for. And like we righted the ship, quote unquote, or at least stabilized it enough for most people. But they watched a system that abandoned them. They watched nobody be punished for it. And then slowly but surely, everybody's paychecks are not going as far as they used to. And then now you have a president who's outright denying that there's even a problem. And I would argue, like, no offense to Joe Biden, who I loved and thought was, more a good president than a bad president, obviously. But like Biden kind of also did the same thing. There was a lot of like, and Democrats do it differently because Donald Trump will go, the economy's the hottest it's ever been. And Joe Biden will go, 49 out of 50 Nobel laureate economists say our economy's the envy of the world. And they're like, I don't give a fuck what a Nobel laureate economist says. I can't put food on the table.
Exactly. And the way a lot of these economists are thinking is it in the micro sense of like, there's a difference between the economy and your economy. Yes. And I think that's part of the problem is when especially Democrats will talk about the economy is the issue most people care about. False. The economy is not the issue most people care about. Their economy is what most people think about, which is a very, very specific thing that's a lot different. And part of the issue, and I think, of course, there's amazing things that happen under the Biden presidency. But the issue here is if the economy is rigged where when it's growing, the richest people, my hair, I got black people hair, so when I can't wear it normally. So if it's rigged.
You want me in solidarity?
Yeah. If you want to try, it's hard.
I have Irish, Italian hair, whatever you would call this. I don't know.
It's just if I do it, it'll be indented the rest of the day.
I get it.
I just need to start carrying like little in-ear monitors that I can just.
There you go.
If the economy's rigged where the richest people are up here and these are the gains they'll always receive, and then everyone else is here. Even when the economy grows, right, which is objectively a good thing, it grows the way it's rigged.
Right.
And that's part of what happened during the Biden presidency is he did bring us back from COVID. He did do good, put forth great legislation to grow the economy and bring us back in a good way. But it grew how it was rigged. And when that happens and people say, I'm hearing the economy is growing, but my stuff is the same, or maybe it's even worse in some instances, better in other instances, people don't feel it, and that's why people didn't feel it. We didn't do enough to unrig the economy. We did a lot to grow the economy, which is good, but we have to get it out of our mind. It's not just about growing this economy. It's about changing the way it grows. If we don't do that, again, I think we might be in a place where just whoever's the incumbent party will just end up losing because people are upset, and you're 100% right. That Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump voter, I love speaking with a lot of these folks because what they're looking for is change. Right. Bold transformational change, something different because it's not working. And I think that's going to continue to be a trend in this country unless someone actually does something about it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be different, and it's going to be important. And my hope is our next nominee will be aligned on that. That's like the biggest checkpoint for us as a party is going to be that. Now, I'm someone who always tells people, don't just worry about the presidency. State and local elections are important. Congress is important, and I still believe that. But it is the biggest lever of power in a political party in the United States of America. And I look no further than Donald Trump winning that primary and being the leader of the Republican Party for a decade.
Yep.
Okay, for a decade. That is, and think about all the people who like did what you're supposed to do in politics and him coming in and just grabbing it. And the fact of the matter is it's the same for the Democratic Party. We need someone to go in there and grab it and say, and I think the base is kind of already here, but we know the powers that be don't always adhere to the base.
Nope.
Someone's going to have to really come in there and grab and say, we need big, bold, transformational change. There might have been a time and place for more of the neoliberalism. I think that time has gone because we're in a point now where people need this. And look no further than, I spent a couple days in El Salvador at the beginning of this year on the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case. But I spoke with a lot of people from civil society who, that president, who's a very right-wing, Trump-loving president, was elected with like 80 or 90% of the vote? And did 80 or 90% of that country align with him on all the issues? No. But it got so unsafe in that country, people felt like they couldn't even go outside without being disappeared or dying.
Right.
That they suspended a lot of their core values at the election, at the ballot box, to vote for someone who they probably disagreed with on a lot of stuff, but said, I just want to go outside again, and then we'll deal with everything else. That's what happened this last election, too.
Yes.
You had a lot of people who said, I care about abortion. I know that Trump is more of an authoritarian person who doesn't fully believe in democracy. I care about climate change. I care about ending gun violence, but I cannot pay for food for my kids tomorrow. And I'm going to vote for the person who is giving to me that they're going to drastically change the country because whatever's going on isn't working. Now, I'm not here trying to excuse decisions people made, but politics is about addition, not subtraction. And I've never been about trying to shame people for a decision they made last year. I'm more concerned with the decision you'll make next time. And I know me sitting here badgering at you isn't going to help with that. I'm curious as to why you made that decision. And a lot of times when you talk with people about it, it comes from a real place that you agree with. And so that's my soapbox on that.
Well, you actually had, and this was like in February or March of this year, you had a really good tweet that was making a point that I was making at the same time and getting yelled at on Blue Sky about it, which is that the answer is not to lecture people or yell at them. And go, oh, you screwed up. Oh, you got taken advantage of. The answer is to reach out and go, I'm sorry that you're being taken advantage of. I'm still here for you. Like, I'm your brother and I'm your sister. And like, you know, there's so many people like Joe Rogan is slowly turning into a resistance lib, which, by the way, Joe Rogan has always been a resistance lib. He just didn't know it, in my opinion.
Yeah, he endorsed Bernie before he endorsed
I know.
Trump.
And so many people are going, well, what did you expect? And be like, you got to welcome people in. You just can't do that. I want to, before we get off the economic stuff for a second, I want to make just one more point on this that I think is super important, which is Democrats sort of cling to institutions. Democrats cling to the way things have worked before. And part of, I think, where we got caught on the economy, and you said it, but I want to put a finer point on it, is these economic metrics that we think register how the economy is doing right now. And to give you an example, CNN had a segment today that I posted on my X account is, you know, they were like, consumer sentiment has never been lower than it is today. It's at 22%, but consumer spending is still so high. Why are the American people spending when they're so negative on the economy? I think it's something like 50-60% of all consumer spending is happening by the top like 1% of 1%. So all these people, like, if you're doing well, your kids are going to have everything that they need for Christmas. But again, the bottom 80% are struggling. So the divide in inequality is so screwed up right now that people cannot survive, and it's not showing up in the numbers, and Democrats didn't catch up to that.
I 100% agree with you. And the fact of the matter is it's going to require some pretty drastic changes in the nation about how wealth is accumulated, where it goes, and I think that's really important. Now, I'm not here saying people shouldn't be able to accumulate wealth and be rich. I want people to accumulate wealth. I want people to be able to own a house. I want people to buy the nice car they want. I want people to have enough money to go on vacation. But the fact of the matter is the majority of this country lives paycheck to paycheck. 60% of our people, if today something happened and they need to pay $500 for it, they cannot do it. They cannot do it. They don't have $500 in the bank to take out and do it. That's a crisis. That is a crisis in front of us. So we have to, and there's not one solution. There's a lot of things here. Our sickness care system in this country that we need to transform into an actual healthcare system. You know, another Bernie thing. I mean, we're the only major country to not ensure that everybody has healthcare. I think that's a big one. We have a housing crisis on our hands that the federal government, when I first got to Congress and I talked to people about housing, so many people say, it's more of a state local issue. It's like the federal government's completely like washed its hands clean of the biggest crisis in our country, or one of the biggest crises in our country. It's a huge crisis in my district too. If you think the federal government doesn't have a role in this, you are sadly mistaken. We need a federal housing package, and I think that's really important. I mean, there's just so much here to do, and it's important that we do it quickly. And part of the issue that Democrats have that I'm hoping we've left in the past is we usually wait till we're in power to figure out what to do with the power. That's the problem. You look at something like Project 2025, and something that's important for people to always remember is it's always going to be easier for a right-wing government to fulfill what they want to do. Why? Because usually what they want to do is about tearing things apart. It's easier to fire a bunch of people out of agency and claim that as a win than it is to get the country health care. It's just an easier thing to accomplish. That doesn't mean we should just throw our hands in the air and say it's not fair. It means whatever they do for planning and putting things together, we have to do times two, because our project is literally harder to accomplish. But it's important that we accomplish it. And that's why this period now it is important that we're putting together what that looks like for the future. The other thing that Republicans do that I think we need to do more of is, and this might be just a Trump thing and now he runs the party, is they are more willing to bring in people not in the hierarchy of our establishment to help us dictate where we want to go. I'll give you an example. Project 2025 was not written by the RNC. Project 2025 was written by Heritage Foundation and people who are not in the Republican hierarchy exactly. And there are so many groups biting at the bit to help Democrats do a similar thing, but there's always resistance, right? Because it's like you're an outside group, we're on the inside, we work together, but we got to drop that shit. I mean, this is part of the reason why we're in this situation. I mean, just look at even something like Turning Point. Turning Point has much more influence than the young Republicans do, right?
Yes, by miles.
By miles. And I think part of that reason is because they don't carry the title of one of the two parties, right? And so it's adjacent, but it's not exactly, and it creates a different political home. And what I'm saying here is we have to realize that people will gravitate towards different political homes. It is in our best interest to make sure that all of our relatively adjacent groups are doing well, and we shouldn't see it as us working against each other, but us working together for what we want. And yes, sometimes they're going to criticize us, and sometimes they're going to work to hold us accountable. And oftentimes what happens in Democratic spaces is we go, okay, well, you're out of the circle now. Like, you're messing with me. I mean, Turning Point constantly will criticize Republicans and leadership and different stuff like that. But Trump still gave them hundreds of millions of dollars to run youth voter turnout. And Donald Trump got 46% of the youth vote. He didn't win it, but he got the closest those people have ever gotten to winning the youth vote. So I think we're so based on hierarchy in our institution. We gotta let go of that, because there's a lot of talent out there and we need their help, especially at a moment where both parties are not seen favorably. People hate political parties.
Yes.
I've always joked around that we should change our name from the Democratic Party to the Democratic Coalition. But either way, I think that's not going to fix everything. But party politics, people just resent it. And I think we got to allow ourselves to work with more of, groups and people on the outside and actually do kind of what they're saying too.
I think one of the biggest mistakes that, like, the establishment, quote unquote, to the extent that it actually exists.
I don't think it exists anymore.
Right,
too.
exactly.
It's a whole other thing. I don't know if we have the time to get into it.
We're not. We're running out of time.
I
really. Oh man, I'm so tempted to talk to you about that, because I don't believe the establishment really exists.
It doesn't exist. It's up for grabs, which is kind of exciting.
Exactly. Right. We're building a new Democratic Party every single day, and it's going to look really different in ways that people don't understand. But there's this idea of like, I can anoint these pundits on TV, and I can anoint these influencers to be our influencers. I can anoint these candidates to be our candidates, and that worked in the 90s, and that worked in the 2000s. I don't think it works anymore, and I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by what happens. People on my show have heard me talk about the Michigan Senate race 1,000 times, and they told Mallory McMorrow not to run, which I think is a mistake. And that's happening in a lot of other races too now, and they keep doing this. And part of the thing, like on the influencers, okay, and I will kind of end on this because I want to get your thought on this, is like, there's this idea of, we're going to create the liberal Joe Rogan, which is incredibly stupid. And the number of people who've called me and been like, Mike, you're doing really well. Are you the liberal Joe Rogan? And I'm like, fuck no, I don't want to be that. First of all, Joe Rogan is the liberal Joe Rogan, first of all. But there's this idea of like, we can pick a guy and we can make him our guy. And the answer is actually like, it's almost like investing. You're going to find 1,000 different people out there who've got 1,000 different platforms and 1,000 different voices. And you're going to figure out which 20 or 30 you're going to rise to the level that do significant work, that build an audience that's useful and movable, and then can be part of a broader coalition. And that means you have to give them the leeway to fuck up a little bit. You have to give them the leeway to go, hey, I think you're wrong about that. We're all rowing in the same boat. Like, I talk all the time, like, I'm comfortable with a Democratic Party coalition that ranges from Joe Walsh to Zohran Mamdani. Because I know both of them give a shit about regular people. And for all, I disagree with Zohran on some stuff. I disagree with Joe Walsh on a lot of stuff. But I know that they care, and I know that they're in this for the right reasons, and I think we can't, to your point, it's like, if we have an argument is okay. A little bit of Democrats in disarray is okay. And I think that's part of how we got here, where we didn't have a tough conversation about Joe Biden. And had we done that in 2023, we would have had a primary. And Joe Biden likely wouldn't have run, and maybe we would have won, maybe we would have lost. I have no clue. But we would have been in a better position than we were last year with Kamala giving her 107 days, which was a disservice to her.
100%. And I think I agree with you. I think a lot of people are learning the wrong lessons from this past election. And this, and I get it. Like, when something immediately happens that's as traumatic as losing an election the way that we did, you're going to look all around for the silver bullet, for the one thing. And something I truly believe is there's never one reason why you lose an election. There's usually a bunch. And I think some people have the wrong mindset when they think about the new media landscape we live in, and they think a lot about the one person, the liberal Joe Rogan or the this or the that, or we need to create our own cadre of people. And for me, it's a lot of this stuff already exists and you've just never tapped into it. You've never gone to do an interview on it. It's interesting. Like, people will be more willing to go on Fox News or to go on like right-wing things than they will to go on like left-wing creator stuff who criticize our party sometimes and sometimes, give us props. And I get it's part of the issue is we're very risk adverse.
Yes.
Even when
the Democratic Party risk averse? No.
Yeah, right? No. But it's even why, like, it's interesting. I feel like in the new media world, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, like, the type of content that does well and that people consume is either very short or very long.
Yeah, that's right. There's no middle ground.
Like these 7-minute interviews on CNN, stuff like, okay. But like, people either want to hear you talk for an hour or they want to hear you speak for like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people are consuming more podcasts and stuff. And most of them aren't sitting down and watching for an hour, but they have it on while they're doing other stuff, while they're driving, while they're doing things.
Yeah.
And part of the issue is a lot of Democratic elected officials are very, like a comms director says, go and sit with someone for an hour. It doesn't usually happen because, you might say something, it's more time for you to mess up. We just need to throw that out.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, just sit with the person for an hour.
Not to interrupt, but the voters will reward you for making a mistake.
Yeah.
You see that with Trump. Like, Trump makes mistakes all the time, and they just go, wow, he's being himself, and they will reward you for that in a time where everything is a bullshit soundbite.
Yep, 100%. So I think a lot of it comes down from us throwing that out. We're still playing. I think a lot of this has changed in the last few months in a positive direction, but I think we're still playing off of a very old playbook.
Yeah.
And then the people who have noticed that, a lot of them want to do the exact same things other people are doing, which I think is wrong too.
Yeah.
I think we're going in a lot better direction here, to be honest. And the last thing I'll say too, that maybe is kind of a slight pushback to everything we both have said, but I always think about, is there's this notion people have that like, the Republican Party is doing great in new media. They're all doing great. And that's actually not true either. There's, much like our party, there's key people doing good stuff.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump is just such a towering figure that he's provided this umbrella of coverage over the whole party. The Republican caucus is full of, like, very old white dudes who are not doing new media at all.
Yep.
Like, who aren't doing any media, who aren't posting on social media, who are not being heard from. That's like most of their caucus.
Right.
They have a handful of people who are out there all the time. But Donald Trump is just such a towering figure on this that it makes us seem like, they got the new media thing down. They must all be out there. They're not all out there like that. And it just shows the importance of having, and to go back to the presidential primary, having someone there who provides that, who's just so good, so authentic, and has a message that it lifts all of us up. Because that's what's happening on their side too.
Yeah. And it also means that like they're going to sync with him as well. And I know we need to end it. So I want to give you.
We think we're in a disarray moment now. Wait till he's gone.
Well, we're about to go. We're about to go through. Like, look, this era of our politics is going to be over in the next couple of years. Like, either he's going to die or he's not going to run for a third term. I really don't believe that. And by the way, somebody can pull this later and make fun of me if he does run for a third term somehow. But if he does that, Obama should run for a third term. I actually want to see that. But we're going to get a new Democratic Party. We're going to get a new Republican Party. The paradigms are going to shift. Now, maybe it's going to be worse. Maybe it's going to be better. Maybe it's going to be left. Maybe it's going to be right. I don't know. But it's going to be aggressively different. And one thing I do know is you are going to be a very big part of it as one of the youngest members of Congress. As the youngest member of Congress still, which I'm somehow shocked by. But thank you so much for taking the time, taking an hour today, doing something a lot of your colleagues wouldn't. Just to end it, can you tell people where to find you? Yeah, people can follow me on social media at Maxwell Frost FL, MAXWELL FROST FL, and I'm on TikTok as Rep Maxwell Frost. Amazing. Please go follow Congressman Frost and support the work that he is doing. Thank you again for coming on the show. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.